All right, welcome in here. Happy Wednesday to you. Just one game in the NBA here tonight. The playoffs underway. Game 2 at the Garden between the Knicks and the one and only, the Indiana Pacers here. Now, big news, of course, Mitchell Robinson out for the remainder of the playoffs, which is going to make depth an issue here for the New York Knicks. But somebody knows how to navigate around this, and it's Rob Veno joining us here today on the NBA Tip-Off Show. And Vino, we all heard this news a little bit earlier. And okay, it's, you got to cheer. That's why you still got Hart and Stan, still got Precious Achua. But boy, oh boy, that rotation of the Knicks was minimal to begin with. It's going to be even less now, not just with the Pacers, but moving forward. What do you think it all means when it comes down to it here for the Knicks? They got enough active players to make a run at this?
Well, I think it means they wish they had a different opponent than the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah.
Because if you're Rick Carlisle and you have a 9-man rotation and you love to get up and down the floor, you're just going to do that for 7 games or however many it takes here. Because, I mean, the Knicks' minutes were huge to begin with, right? Going back to the Sixers series. I remember in the overtime game, a couple of them played 50, Jalen Brunson 47. Everybody's been ground into dust by Tom Thibodeau. And by the time this series gets into the middle or to the heart of the series, I wonder what the Knicks situation will be, especially Jalen Brunson, who's counted on for so much of that offensive load. He did have a couple of bad games shooting wise against Philly in 1 and 2. Since then, he's been lights out. But at some point in time, Joe, especially against an opponent like this that does not want to walk up the floor and be methodical, you have to wonder if this team can survive it already without, like you say, Bogdanovich, already without Randall, and now to add to it Robinson. Rim protection goes with that. It's a whole lot of things that you probably like if you're the Indiana Pacers, especially the fact that in game 1, there was no tempo control by the Knicks, right? 121, 117, it got up and down.
It's an interesting spot because it's clear to me, I think, from the line, Vino, it looks like the public all over the Pacers here tonight. Looks like this is going to be the trendy dog. Everyone loves a good zigzag here, Vino, tonight at the Garden here. And to be honest, the Knicks had a lot of things go right for them in that first game, and you've got to ask yourself, all right, styles make fights, right? And you mentioned it and just alluded to it. It's not a great style matchup here for the Knicks, but I don't think Halliburton's 100%. I don't think anybody that's watched them is 100% here, Vino. So can we trust the Pacers on the road to bounce back in this spot? They are getting a whole lot of points, but the public loves them tonight.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of history with this group to go on, Joe, but we do know that they walked into Milwaukee game 1, probably with some playoff inexperience, jitters, and got destroyed, and came back in game 2 and won. So if we look at it from that perspective, then you go to game, I think it was 5, where they had the potential to close out, but again, it was on the road, no experience closing out, maybe a little nervousness. They get blown out. They come back and win. So they've shown the ability to bounce back after losses. The one the other night, especially tough for Indiana, second time in this postseason where the Knicks at home have really gotten victories courtesy of poor refereeing. That 2-minute report is probably something the Knicks are in love with. Just keep bringing those things because they work for them. So I think you could trust Indiana here, plus the 5. I mean, of course, the zigzag always first thing on your mind in the playoffs, but I think Pacers plus 5 probably would be the way I would lean.
All right, Pacers plus 5 for Mr. Rob Veno here. And what are you thinking, Veno, from a series perspective here? Are we confident enough to back, you think the Knicks get it in 6 and 7? Has your thought process changed at all as far as the series goes? If it heads back to Indiana, they've been pretty good at home all year long. You know, nothing like a young team going back home. If this series is 1-1, are we looking at 7 games?
It's possible, Joe. And wait, I discussed this with Ski Profit earlier this afternoon. We started looking at the series, and Indiana plus 1.5 games. Right now, that price is like plus 130, plus 2.5 is, I think, minus $1.45. It's hard for me to see the Knicks closing this out in 5 games. So if you're willing to lay 45 cents, I think Indiana plus 2.5 is probably a good way to go. If you think the Pacers have a shot even before tonight's tip-off, I think that we looked it up. They were plus 275 heading into tonight to win the series. I don't know. You estimate for me, if the Pacers lose this game, they're plus 275 now. If they lose this game and go down 0-2 but go home, they're probably still an underdog for the series, right? So, I mean, if you want to wait, if it gets to 1-1, they're probably still an underdog. Right. If they're 0-2, obviously they're a huger underdog. But if it gets to 1-1, you might still be able to pick them up at plus price in an even series with home floor advantage. So a few ways to look here, but I for one, don't see this thing ending in 5. So I think there's ways to probably play the Pacers.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, we also got a whole lot of minutes being played here by Knick players, right? I think ultimately that's what it rolls back to for us, right? You got Josh Hart playing over 40 minutes every game. Brunson's not taking any minutes out here. We do have a question. I know Chris joining us in the chat room, and shout out to John Findlay over there, Titan CT, Big Daddy. You guys all in the house. Bill is here. Tyler, Have. Shout out, guys. Happy Wednesday. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button for us here as we've got some questions rolling in on some of these guys for the Knicks. And Chris is a Knicks fan here, Veno, and he's a little worried here. Dante DiVincenzo obviously playing a whole lot of minutes now. I think he's logged 43 or more in the last 2 games. I don't see how he's going to get less than that, especially now that Mitchell Robinson is out for the remainder of the playoff. You're talking about an Indiana team that has allowed the 6th most points to shooting guards, and DiVincenzo, I believe, has scored at least 20. I don't think he was in a team. I think he scored at least 20 or more in 3 out of the 4 against the Pacers. It's been always a great matchup. He started slow in the last game, in game 1, but my goodness, he went flying over his total again in game 1. 17.5 is what I'm seeing now. You got to love the matchup for him, but man, this is a lot of minutes for these guys on the Knicks here.
Yeah, just off of sheer opportunity that they're going to get those 3 guys to score, Joe, to score, to rebound. I know that Thibodeau reached into the bench and pulled Precious Achiuwa off the other night, so it makes the Knicks even smaller, which means if you're smaller, maybe it goes a little bit quicker, the pace. I don't know if it can get any quicker than it was the other night, but if it goes just as quick, that creates opportunity. So it's hard to recommend anything. And not that I'm one to step into this show, Joe, and recommend unders, but this series really is hard for me to recommend anything under at this point in time. I know this thing reached about 221.5 for a full game total and pushed down to 218.5. That certainly can't be because Mitchell Robinson's out, because he's not worth 3 points in a total. But it could be that, early money thought that it was overpriced a little bit. But I don't know. To me, from all angles, unless you just miss, both teams probably have to shoot less than 40%, in my estimation, for this to stay under, because they're going to get so many chances. And honestly, Joe, I don't know that you can slow Indiana down. You watched them the other night, and they will run off of made shots. Like the ball goes through the basket for the Knicks, and Indiana's going right back down the floor at them. And I don't see that stopping. And we're seeing that in a few series right now. We saw that out of OKC against Dallas last night. We got 9 guys. Let's run them into the ground, because they don't. We're seeing it from Indiana, and we're seeing it somewhat from Minnesota as well, with Jamal Murray banged up. So I think this series has, with the injury, takes even a stronger overtone than it had to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if you were hoping for an under in that game 1, it just did not feel like that was it. I think it was obvious early, Veno, that the Knicks had no problem running with them. And Indiana had no problem getting out. But also, Indiana's bench, much better than anything the Knicks are going to be throwing out there. So you gotta wonder, how in the world is this game going to slow down? No more Mitchell Robinson. 3 starters playing over 40 minutes here for the Knicks. And if they're going to play that much, Vino, every one of them, and I know a lot of people are looking at the Brunson number, 37.5, I think is what his point prop is. Obviously, if he's going to drop 40 damn points a game, I get it here. But, an off shooting night for Brunson, and we saw it in the Philadelphia series too. He's not going to sniff that. And if you like the Pacers, not just to cover, by the way, to win this game, like they did, you mentioned it against Milwaukee, that game too, that was pretty impressive. That was a pretty big comeback there for them after losing game one against the Bucks. If they do that again here, I don't know that Brunson gets to 40 points. I don't know that goes over there, Vino.
No, it's true. Those first two games against Philadelphia, and at some point, Jalen Brunson's not going to shoot the way he has shot the last four. But that being said, he's going to be able to hoist it up 30, 35 times a game. So you don't have to shoot a huge percentage if you get that many opportunities. But yeah, if he doesn't get the 37 and a half, Joe, it's hard to see the Knicks winning games. I think that for Indiana, we all saw when they bring TJ McConnell off the bench, it doesn't slow down. I mean, that guy's up and down the floor just as fast. It makes Brunson work on the other end. These point guards just keep coming and coming and coming at them. So it's hard on the defensive end. Jalen Brunson's not that good of a defensive player to begin with, never mind being, tempoed by the other side. This is, like I say, this is an interesting matchup because Indiana's big on points in the paint, and without Mitchell Robinson as rim defense anymore, it's on Hartenstein's shoulders to do everything as far as rim protection is concerned. And you can almost run him out of games, Joe. I mean, when the tempo gets fast, we don't see Isaiah Hartenstein running the floor every single time. And he's only got so many minutes in him at full speed. It's where tonight is concerned, real quick, Indiana's team total was 107, 106 and a half, 107. I find it hard to see them staying under. And the other angle to this is that if you're the Knicks and you played Indiana's game up and down the floor and you beat them 121 to 117, what makes you think that you can't play it again? So I think that you probably see more pace.
Yep, and I love it. The guys in the chat room, by the way, shout out to Monzi. He's got an interesting question about OG Anunoby. We'll get to that. There seems to be a consensus with Brunson that it might be a little bit of regression here tonight. Can't keep dropping 40-plus points in the playoffs. And to your point, Vino, expect the other end of the floor to be up to par. At some point, playing 40, 45 minutes a game, there's going to be a little bit of regression at some point. Tonight might be that night. I'm also seeing, and you mentioned him, TJ McConnell has been an absolute beast. He's also been a ATM with his props here. 10.5 is his total points, and I've seen a bunch of guys in here. I know Russell Saylor in the chat. He's got TJ McConnell over 10.5. It feels like that's a little low. I have no problem, especially given the fact that Halliburton is a shell of what he was. He's not scoring. So his assists will be there, but he's not scoring, which means McConnell has got to be right there getting some shots. 10 doesn't feel like it's a big issue here for McConnell.
He took 16 shots the other night, Joe. TJ McConnell.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
He played 22 and a half minutes. And so if you're going to get that type of opportunity where minutes and shot attempts are concerned, and 10.5 is far too low. I think what we see out of TJ McConnell, at least when I was watching the other night, he takes the ball, he races to the other end of the floor, he bolts across the baseline. If he doesn't see a layup present itself, then he just kicks it out and they do something with it. So again, it's push, push, push on the Indiana end. And you have to wonder what the Knicks breaking point is. I don't see Indiana. It would be different if we could say the Knicks can halt this pace. But I don't know that they can. Remember, Milwaukee tried to. Milwaukee was shorthanded, and they really didn't want to run. They were successful one time, and I think that was the potential closeout game in Milwaukee where Indiana shot horribly. But I don't know that the Knicks can slow this team down. We'll see. I mean, it doesn't mean the Knicks can't win the game because they just won a high-scoring game. But I think the game that we're going to see, the style, the tempo, is going to be fast and high-scoring.
Yeah, and the Knicks also needed a lot of things to break their way, including refs, including foul shot. I mean, they had a lot of things that were working for them here, but I don't think that's a recipe for success in the long term here. Trying to, you're thin as it is. You got no depth, and running with Indiana is probably, especially when Indiana gets home, you know what's going to happen there. And by the way, to your point, 16 shots. He played 22 minutes, McConnell, in that Bucks game in game one, right? So Halliburton, not great here in this. I would try to. Well, I don't want to fade him point wise, but my goodness, it just feels like he's trying to make the most of what is not a great situation. That back spasms are a problem. He's always going to be questionable, Veno, it feels like, for the rest of the series and the rest of the playoffs. Kind of hard to count on him in anything to do with points or point props here moving forward.
Yeah, and they've lowered the numbers somewhat on him. Not a ton, but a little bit. And they gave him 36 minutes the other night. Didn't put up many shots. To your point, when you're talking about point production, he only took 6 shots, and he didn't go to the free throw line. So it's going to be on the assist end. And maybe he tries to assert himself a little bit more this evening. I would expect that's what Jamal Murray tried, right? Jamal Murray. There's so many injuries here, Joe, that we've been looking at in these playoffs that have been really dictating what's happened. The teams that have stayed healthy are the ones that really are rolling right along. Minnesota, Oklahoma City, to some extent Indiana. But there's a lot. I mean, they missed Benedict Mathurin too. What if they had him? So to the point of injury, I don't. Halliburton, I think, will shoot more than 6 times tonight. I do. But he's got to make them still. He's going to get his share of assists. He got 8 the other night just by being on the floor, generally what he can get, because the Pacers fast break it so much. Real quick, Joe, just to the point about maybe the Knicks play pace here, the 16 teams that qualified for the playoffs this year, the team that averages the most fast break points per game so far is the Knicks. The Knicks average more fast break point teams than anybody in the postseason. The Knicks average more second chance points than anybody in the postseason. So when we go back to the Philadelphia series and see how high they were scoring and how many overs were played, I know there was one that was overtime, but still, I think that the season-long narrative that the Knicks are a methodical team has changed, and mostly due to the injury situation, and in this case, the opposition.
So we've got, how about Anunoby? I know Monzi was talking about over 1.5 steals. I would imagine he's close to averaging that, at least a couple a game there. That is not a bad look there, Monzi, for Anunoby. A lot of talk in the chat room, Veno, about feels like Siakam a little timid offensively here. Noticed that in the last game there against Milwaukee to close out game there. Game one, not exactly great. He was at one point the leading scorer in the playoffs, wasn't he not, Veno? And now Siakam, I think he's a guy that has got to show up big for them, especially with the question marks around Halliburton. I mean, Siakam's got to have a big game here tonight, and he's a big-time player. He's got the ring. He knows what it takes here in these spots here. Veno, you trust Siakam tonight?
Yeah, game one was interesting because he gets matched up with OG Anunoby, and they were both Toronto Raptor teammates. And so they know each other very, very well, right? OG didn't have a great game either. 5 of 14 for only 13 points. Siakam was 8 of 16. He scored 19 in that game. Miles Turner is probably the guy that you want to look at with Mitchell Robinson gone now, because Miles Turner can drag Hartenstein away from the rim, probably blow by him. But I would expect Siakam to play well here. I think that last game, like I say, when you're matched up with a former teammate, they both have the ring, who knows you very, very well. There's got to be some different things thrown at the guy this time around. It may work out the same way for OG Anunoby in this game, where he saw Siakam once and maybe get some things going his way. The thing about Siakam, Joe, which would lead me more to playing I shouldn't even say that because the Knicks are so limited in options. Maybe I wouldn't rather play Siakam than Anunoby, but Siakam gets out on the break so often. He's flying down the floor. But again, in defense of OG Anunoby, if you want to play his props, I can't talk you up because there's nobody else to score for the Knicks. We talked about there's four guys basically that are going to score points on that team.
Here's what you got, 19.5 points, right? He's got 19 points in the last 5 straight, I believe now. And this was after he opened up. Remember, he opened up the playoffs, 37, 36, and 28. He was an absolute beast. Also, the Pacers 10-4 when he drops 25 or more points since joining them. So it is pretty important, I think, that the Pacers get him going in this game. It would be fantastic to get him going in this game. You mentioned the team total, which I thought, Veno, was a little strange too, 107.5. Did you see the first half team total too? Also a little head scratching. The Indiana Pacers first half team total is 51.5. What am I missing here, Veno? What we're expecting them to be overwhelmed by the what? 51.5, Veno?
Well, here's what happened the other night. The other night it was 52, and I had it. It was a client play.
Yep.
Indiana first half team total over 52. They come out there. They looked a little tentative first quarter. They only scored 24 points. But they scored 31 in the second quarter once they started going, and they went over the 52. They got to 55 with a bad quarter at hand. So you can almost say that Indiana could come out and stumble and still get over 51.5. You know, the fact that the number is dropped from game one really surprises me. I don't know why. I don't know what people expect out of Indiana to think that they would score less than they did the first time out. And again, especially with a poor first quarter where they didn't play real well.
Yeah. They're asking in the chat, where is the sharp money in this game? Well, I'll tell you right now, it's on the under. Because this went from 220.5, and it looks like everybody and their mother is betting the over, and this line is still dropping from 220.5 to 218.5, and even 218s in some spots. So I find that fascinating here that we're getting such a push to the under here at 218.5, which I guess would correlate as to why the first half numbers are a little bit under as well here. But you know, if you like one team total over, you like them both over and the game over. Don't you hear, Veno?
Well, the second half was a 72-62 the other night. Knicks, 134 points in the second half. So despite the fact that the first half only had 104, you're never out of it in team total where the Pacers are concerned. And again, I think the team's got a little traction. Indiana's walked into these game ones, both now against Milwaukee and against the Knicks, a little bit, tentative. But once they get their footing, they hit the gas and they go. And I think they found their footing a lot quicker in game one here than they did against Milwaukee. They never found it in game one. So, you know what, Joe? I don't know the reasoning. And I get maybe there's I should have had the SDQL crew here because there's probably some killer sports trend that tells you that game two stay under the total. And maybe that's a reason why people bet them. But I just can't see this thing being played in a phone booth. The way things set up here with the players that are going to be on the floor, we will see. Indiana had only been held under 100 points one time all season long. Then they were held under twice. We talked about those already by Milwaukee. To be held under, I got this thing at 106.5. It is, like you say, it's been bet up a little bit to 107, maybe 107.5 by now. But to see them held under 107, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I guess I'd have to see it to believe it. And if they shoot lousy, it could happen. But I just don't know that the Knicks are good enough defensively at this point in time to make them shoot lousy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the trends that I heard earlier today all had to do with, lower seeds, 6 seeds, I think it was, Veno, which I believe is what they were. When they get to that second round and they're on the road, not exactly great, the numbers. I think 14-15 straight up, 17-12 against the number, when they get into the second round. And, of course, that they are on the road playing a team in anywhere between games 2 through 7. So it's rough sledding, but I just think the styles make fights. I think the Knicks, yes, more than capable of going up 2-0 and going to Indiana. But I've always said it. I thought this series was much more likely that we were going to get a couple of zigzag spots here, and ultimately home court matters in the playoffs. And it seems like it's mattered a lot this season so far. Have you noticed that? We had, of course, except if you're Denver. Apparently, Denver doesn't like winning at home. But everyone else does here. Veno, OKC handled it. We saw the Knicks handle game one here in the second round. Man, home court matters. And if that's the case, from this point on, 6 or 7 games, 7-game series, you got to figure, man, advantage to some of these home teams in the higher seeds.
Yeah, from the straight up perspective, for sure, because the Knicks are only 2-3 against the spread at home. Philly covered twice over there. Indiana covered the other night over there. MSG has produced wins for the Knicks, but not point spread wins. So if you're betting money line, congratulations, you're cashing. If you're laying points with the Knicks, you're underwater right now at 2-3.
Yes.
So we'll see. It's funny when we go through and when I listen to trends like that, 6 seeds over the years.
Yeah.
But every 6 seed isn't the same 6 seed, right? And not since, goodness, Joe, I'm trying to think of a team that really wanted to push as much as this Indiana team wants to push. And all I can think of is when Phoenix, all they wanted to do was run with Steve Nash and those guys.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a terrible, for a depth shy team, it's not a fun spot to be in, I don't think, because I don't know that the Knicks can put the brakes on Indiana here. So we're going to see. Sometimes those trends, when you try and put logic to them, you really can't put logic to them.
No, you can't. I mean, listen, 14. All right, 13 and a half, 14.
Yeah. With a push, right? They opened 13, and here they go, all the way 13 and a half. And a couple of straight 14. So nobody wants any part of the Cavaliers. I mean, the Cavaliers are such a different team without Jared Allen. With Jared Allen is a huge, and again, we're talking about injuries. It's just crazy with all of these teams. Everybody's suffering from some form of injury, whether they have guys trying to gut it out like Luka Doncic, like Jamal Murray, like Tyrese Halliburton, or they just have guys that are flat out of the games, like Kawhi Leonard was, like Giannis was, like Lillard was for a bit, like Jared Allen's been for 5 games. But if you don't have Jared Allen, I mean, how are you going to beat Boston? I mean, Derek White throws 25 in the other night. They have so many options. You can't defend them all. And that backcourt for Cleveland to begin with, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland aren't known for as a defensive backcourt. So, Jaylen Brown, what do you have? 32 and 25 out of White. It's a difficult road for Cleveland without a big guy to help Evan Mobley down low.
No Jared Allen. No, and even with Jared Allen, really, what do you expect there? And I still scratch my head. Is that how, Celtics in 4, Celtics in 5 was the same price? You were still at that plus 175, 190. I was like, what am I missing here? I don't get it. That offense is every bit as bad as what the Miami Heat were without Jimmy Butler. So congratulations. Go 10 minutes without scoring. Let me know how that works out for you, Cleveland. Another game that you couldn't get to 100. My goodness, that's absolutely bonkers. What were your initial thoughts on what you saw with Dallas and OKC last night here? It looked very OKC, especially in the second half. I was impressed with their poise and how they came out and kept attacking. But what did you think? I don't think it's going to be a sweep by any stretch here, but what did you think of what you saw?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat similar to what we're seeing with Minnesota. Listen, Oklahoma City head coach Mark Dagnall tells you, I got a 9-man rotation, and I don't mind playing all 9 in the first 12 minutes if I have to. I'm just going to wear, it's like SEC defensive lines when they just rotate 12 guys in and they keep sacking the quarterback because everybody's fresh, right? And on the other side, Luka and Kyrie are the only 2 guys that handle the ball. So, Oklahoma City is just relentless in their pursuit of trying to make those 2 guys' lives miserable. Kyrie did show that he's capable of getting around anybody at any time. Yes. But it doesn't mean that Oklahoma City doesn't make his life tough. And Luka banged up, having to fight off these, I guess best description, like when you have mosquitoes all over the place and you can't get them out of your face. Lou Dort leads the pack. Jalen Williams follows. Last night it was Kason Wallace and all these guys. Just very, very difficult. I think it's going to be Dallas is going to have to earn everything they get. And without Maxi Kleber, I don't know where the options are from beyond the arc. Because last night, Joe, when you're watching the game, if you have Dallas and you see Josh Green put up a 3-pointer, you have no faith it's going in. If you see Derek Jones put up a 3-pointer, you have no faith it's going in. If you see an injured Tim Hardaway put up a 3-pointer, you have no faith it's going in. And Luka can make all the nice passes he wants and find the open man, but somebody's going to have to make shots for Dallas. One game doesn't make a series, but Oklahoma City just comes in waves, and I think it's going to be very, very difficult if Luka's not able to I know he's trying to gut it out, and I know he had a 35-point performance last series on that bad knee, but he's going to have multiples because if him and Kyrie aren't scoring 70 combined, they're not winning.
Yeah, they are. There's got to make some adjustments, but I'll tell you what, I'm hammering Kyrie over points props the entire series. I'm just hammering him. The guy is just he is playing at a ridiculous level right now, and they're going to be so focused on limiting Doncic. He is going to have a ton of opportunities in that series. By the way, you can still get Oklahoma City, I believe, laying a game and a half at just about even money. And believe it or not, I still think the Celtics, if I'm seeing here, a Celtics 4-0 sweep, Celtics 4-0, still plus money, Veno, plus 110 right now, plus 115. So if you think the Cavs are going to steal one, well, good luck. Celtics 4-1, still also plus 175. But if not, Celtics win game 2, which they are certainly scheduled to. Yikes, you ain't getting anything remotely close with Boston taking down Cleveland at plus money. So if you didn't get it, you can still get it at plus money here in either Celtics in 4 or Celtics in 5. And just a quick look here, too, Veno, at the series handicap here for the Knicks, just to see where we are. Knicks minus 1.5 is the favorite at minus 155. The Pacers plus a game and a half, plus 135. So if you think the Pacers, if we can get this thing, what do you think, Veno? We get this thing back to Indiana, evened up. I still think we're going to get some zigzagging, and I think it begins tonight. I think Indiana take the points and lay it on the money line. What else could we be looking at here?
Yeah, and you know what, Joe? At plus 1.5, even if they didn't win tonight, let's just say they go down 0-2.
Right.
They probably go home and win 2, and then you're 2-2 right back in the same position with plus 1.5.
Yep.
So I think I'm with you in the fact that I think it's a long series. Going to be drawn out, probably go 7, unless there's an injury that really makes things worse for New York or Indiana. But yeah, I could see Indiana plus 1.5. Like I say, we were talking this one out earlier today, and it seems like a pretty solid way to go. The other way that was recommended, Joe, is over 5.5 games in that series.
Yes.
Just make it to 6. And it was like minus 145. So why not lay 45 cents and just, it's going to be, I won't say it's going to be, but it would seem that it's going to be at least a 6-game series. So that seems like a solid play.
6 games. When will the series end? 6 games plus 260 right now. So if you think this thing goes 6 plus 260, plus 225 if you think it goes 7. So there is still a few other bets that you can make along the way here and pad it if you think, if you can't, they're 2 very even teams, except for now the fact that, again, a little less depth for the Knicks. And can Indiana exploit that? That's going to be the big question. But either way, I still think it's 6 or 7 games here when it's all said and done. And I do think the Pacers, not a bad look here tonight, plus 1.5 games, still plus money. Plus 6 games, 7 games, plus still a lot of ways to get some plus money in this series here, Veno, no doubt. One other trend we're seeing in the chat rooms here, Josh Hart, over 1.5 threes. It's at plus money. he hasn't like met a 3-point shot he doesn't like to take here lately. Have you noticed that, Vino? First of all, he's playing the entire damn game and he's chucking up shots left and right. So over 1.5 threes for Josh Hart at plus money may not be a bad look.
No, and I think just out of necessity, he has to shoot threes, right? We've talked about it the whole show that there's only a handful, there's less than a handful of guys that can score for this team, Josh Hart being one of them. So if he sees a open three, he's got to shoot it at this point in time. So over 1.5, I think he made one the other night. Chances of him making 2, I would take that shot. I mean, you know, 1.5 is a low number for a guy who's going to be required to put the ball up to let it fly here tonight.
I am with you. I think there's a couple of spots here. But Josh Hart also 35.5 points, rebounds, and assists. 48 minutes in game 1. But he also had one of the best games of his career in that. So how sustainable? It feels like at some point the market is going to cap out on Josh Hart and we can come back in and just hammer it the other way, Vino. This might be it. I just don't know that we can expect what we had in game 1. And the market seems to think we're going to have more of it. I don't know, man. I just don't. I don't think so with Josh Hart. I think we're at the market peak here with him.
It's funny too, Joe, because when we do this NBA tip-off show all season long, I know that where totals are concerned, we a couple of years ago, we're like, well, the line in the sand is 240, and we're not going to cross that line in the sand.
I know.
But I don't know that we have enough info yet on Josh Hart's PRA to draw a line in the sand against a team like this that's going to go back and forth and allow him a bunch of opportunities. So you're right. When is it going to cap out and when can we come back the other way? I don't know that we have enough of a sample size to really make that judgment yet. We might have to watch one more game here.
I'm not saying he's not capable, but damn, you're going to need a lot of things to go right. He's going to have to play 45 plus minutes again. There's a lot of things that are going to have to go right. But the one thing for sure I know he's going to get is he's going to take enough shots to get a chance to make over 1.5 threes at plus money. So I think that one is a fantastic look there, guys. Those of you in the chat room, Chris, Derry in the house. Good to see you, Big Daddy. Catch you slipping. Titans CT also in the house. Always a pleasure to see you, guy. Oh, John Finley. John Finley has the play that I believe he mentioned it yesterday, Vino, and I believe he mentioned it already here today. The play of the century is how he framed it, I believe. And I believe it is the back. Obi Toppin tonight. Now, John, if you're in the chat, is it Obi Toppin? What are we backing? That how many times he sits or how many times he misses? What are we betting with Obi Toppin here, John Finley, in this game here tonight? Because I think it's points. Is it, Vino? We're going to have to check out what Obi Toppin is, but he's big on Obi tonight. Hey, listen, I laughed at the whole idea that it was a revenge game for him. I had said, listen, the cabbies run him over out in front of Madison Square Garden. Nobody knows who he is. Like nobody. They'll just push him to the side and say, see you later. But boy, oh boy, did he come out firing in game 1. Big time here. And now let me just see if we can find what Obi's props are here tonight, because John Finley loves Obi Toppin here tonight. And player props for points. Let's see what we got, Obi. Obi is so good they're not even listing him. How good is that? They're afraid to list his points. That's how good he is, John Finley. Oh my God. Over on points, Finley says every game there. Also, Lee's jumping in, says Hart played over 42 minutes last game. Listen, he's going to play over 40 minutes again tonight out of necessity. I don't know how. At some point, that's going to start going the other way. 5 out of the 7 games so far over 45 minutes here for Josh Hart. Absolutely. 9.5 is his point prop there. John Finley jumping in. Over 9.5 points with Obi. What are you thinking here, Vino? He's going to get a shot.
And a fancy between the legs backward pass the other night. So he's
slam, right? Did you see him through the legs with the slam too? That was impressive. Yes, John Finley saying he is
he's
money.
A bitter ex-Knick.
Yes, he is. Yeah, and you got to love guys like that are going to get that done. I do love the DiVincenzo prop as well, guys. I think we can agree, Vino. He's going to get many more opportunities now. The minutes are going to be there for him. And I don't think he's, for some reason, when they run in Indiana against this Indiana team, DiVincenzo's the one guy that's like, let's go. We'll run. And it usually is at least 20 points or more. That prop is 17.5 tonight, Vino. I got no problem backing DiVincenzo again also.
No, and he's a confident player at this point in time, Joe. I
man.
mean, his stops along the way from Milwaukee to, was he a Sacramento King? He went somewhere from there. But anyway, he's as confident as I've seen him. And it's interesting that Tom Thibodeau, we heard this more than once on the commentary the other night, that Tom Thibodeau thinks the Knicks are a better team when Josh Hart rebounds and pushes pace. I think Van Gundy kept saying it, when Josh Hart pushes pace is when the Knicks are at their best. So again, speaks to the total, speaks to the opportunities that these guys are going to get. And like you said, all three of them, the Villanova three, have played 40 plus minutes. It seems like every game in these playoffs so far out of necessity. So I can't argue against any over with any of those guys as far as player props are concerned.
Yep, I get it. I'm with you there. I think over. Vino and I on the same page. First half, over. Team total, over. 51.5, damn it, the Indiana Pacers team total is in the first half. Hell no. Are they not going under that number? Absolutely not. Vino, tell them what it is you got here. And by the way, Lee jumping in, Toppin hit over 12 points in his last 5 games. So I cannot wait to have this conversation tomorrow, Vino. You're going to have to come back because God help his ass if he gets 2 points tonight and we all lose on Obi Toppin. It's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow. I'll tell you that. But I would tell the folks what you got rolling here at Wager Talk tonight. You got any baseball locked in? What do you got rolling?
We're in with the basketball only, Joe, tonight. Up and available, WagerTalk.com. Been a good run here in the month of May, 11-2 to start with the NBA this month. And since the 1st of April, plus I think 35 units since the 1st of April. So the NBA has been kind, no doubt about it. And we do have a play up and available here. A lot of day baseball already gone, so I didn't have anything at nighttime. But you can pick up tonight's NBA release, WagerTalk.com. You see it right there on the screen, the wt.buzz/RV.
John Finley saying, listen, if Obi Toppin gets 2 points, you'll never see me again in the chat room. So that's all right. No, we don't want that kind of pressure, John. We love you. Absolutely not. Also, we're seeing Hartenstein and Turner over rebounds since they're expecting that, there's going to be some interesting with no Mitchell Robinson there. Who gets those rebounds? Who gets those minutes? TJ McConnell, love this guy. I think the 10.5 number is woefully undervalued in this game here. So a lot of different ways to approach this game. The bottom line is Rob Veno locked, loaded, ready to roll here tonight on his page at WagerTalk.com. And of course, come back and join us again tomorrow. Another edition of the NBA Tip-Off Show as we'll break down a couple of more games for you. There are some teams that have some work to do if they are going to continue in these playoffs. Either way, we wish you guys nothing but the best of luck here tonight. Cash those damn tickets and then make plans and hit that bell, hit that subscribe, and hit that like button and come back and join us again tomorrow for another edition of the NBA Tip-Off Show. Until then, guys, best of luck. John Finley, we'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Obi Toppin. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck, guys.